Hey, it's Jordan. I am delighted to be joined by the growing army of workers fighting back in America. It's a beautiful thing. Joined by Casey and Will, both workers at Starbucks in Buffalo, New York. If you don't know, Starbucks has now joined Amazon workers, window cleaners. There are a couple other groups that are trying to unionize, and they're trying to unionize in Buffalo. And I don't know. I've seen some things with Amazon and their union busting. Seems like Starbucks has taken a page from Amazon, maybe a little worse, because it's only like I don't know, a couple weeks old. This effort to unionize, and basically like executive level Starbucks employees are coming down and issuing mandatory meetings to basically seems to me intimidate you. So could you guys share from start? You know, this was a few weeks ago. I think it came out the news that you guys were trying to unionize. To when did these meetings start, where executives were coming to Buffalo to try and talk to you?
Yeah, yeah, so our campaign only launched a few weeks ago, like you said. It happened really fast. The organizing committee, um, yeah, once word kind of spread, there was a lot of people that were really interested in this, a lot of desire to organize. So yeah, like you said, when it the word started spreading, it happened really fast. But filed the first three stores on August 30th or the
The
31st.
31st,
The
yeah.
31st. And even before that, we had noticed that first it was the district managers that started hanging out in the stores more. We have memes that joke about how they started doing trash runs, washing dishes when they were not frequent present, like a frequent presence in our store prior to talk of the union. And then once we filed a few of these stores, um, people from corporate, people from Boston, Seattle started coming. One person in particular, Rossann Williams, who is the president of North America for Starbucks, has been a frequent present in our stores. They first started with listening sessions that were voluntary, they were paid. Um, and then more recently, I haven't been to one because my store hasn't filed for an election, but Will's has, and I'm sure he could talk more about
Totally. Yeah.
the mandatory listening sessions that they've now started doing that will be a presence for the next few weeks, if not months.
And I love the term listening sessions because it's really you listen to us
Right.
and
Exactly.
vote no. Can you tell us, Will, what those quote listening sessions are like?
Yeah, so I had mine yesterday, actually. Basically, we all had to close the store early. The stores were closed early, both Thursday and Friday, at least for my location. And we had to drive about half an hour over to the airport, to the hotel next to the airport, where we're pretty sure these people are staying, to go into these meetings. Basically, the forum was, oh, we're so very sorry. We had no idea that the experience was this bad. This area is just, it's been a total blind spot for us. We don't know how this happened. We take full responsibility, but no one's at fault here. And we want to like make this up to you, and we want to make sure that the like Starbucks experience like becomes better, and that you guys don't think that like what's been happening here is like any reflection on the company. And so, great things are ahead, and we're going to be doing all this stuff, and we want you to vote no on the union. And that took up about half of the meeting, and then it wasn't until the end where we actually like were able to have any sort of input, which it was really great. At least for my meeting, everyone that was there was already on board. I think there was only one person who hadn't signed a union card, and so we were able to put a lot of pressure, and we were able to push back a lot on the management. Because like you see someone who's like, oh, I'm the regional vice president, Well, when were you hired? You were hired 2 weeks ago. And, we've had both of our regional managers replaced in the last 2 weeks since this campaign started. Both of our district managers and also my store manager is also getting replaced next week. So,
Wow.
The other thing that has been like a very used talking point by Starbucks now for the past week or so is, you don't need a third party to speak for you. The quote that I think she said in the first listening session that I went to was, "We don't believe that our partners need a union to speak for them." And something that we've echoed now multiple times is that this isn't a third party coming in. By Rosanne saying you don't need a union, she's criticizing the partners, because the partners, we are the union. And this idea that there's like this third party coming in, she keeps saying things like, "Oh, go ask your organizers this." And Lexi, a person who is on our organizing committee, made the great point that like that means asking us, because every time you criticize or make a point about the union, like that's us, the partners. So
Right.
it's been really interesting that that's been their kind of
Well,
strategy so far.
that's an important point. So are you guys trying to unionize alongside an already established union like they did in Bessemer, Alabama for Amazon? They were working alongside the retail union, or are you taking a page from the New York Amazon workers who are not working with an established union, but trying to unionize just among the workers?
So we're working with Workers United, specifically Workers United Upstate, the Rochester Regional Joint Board. However, this is a union that prides itself on a lot of local autonomy. So should we, depending on how many different stores we file, it doesn't really matter. We will actually have our own local. That will be just the Starbucks workers in Buffalo, and we'll have our own autonomy in terms of setting up bylaws and being able to govern ourselves in the union however we want, which is, I think, really great and really speaks to sort of the leadership of this union. And I think the other thing that speaks to the leadership of this union is that they're willing to take us on. This isn't an easy place to organize. We have, 20 different locations across a geography with very little overlap. You kind of need to have, a lot of organization at every store. And I think we've had partners that have been able to step up at every store that have made this possible and have made this so successful.
And I want to ask, because this kind of reminds me of like, a relationship where one partner is a scumbag and the other partner takes it for so long. And then that person, man or woman, bursts and threatens to leave. And then all of a sudden they are, the bad partners on best behavior for, a couple of weeks. What you're describing is, oh, we didn't know. Let's just kind of deal with it amongst ourselves rather than bringing in this quote third party. So as part of these listening discussions, were they not aware of your complaints, which in my previous interview includes, hours, demand, how many drinks and things you need to pump out in 5 minutes? Were they not aware of these complaints long ago?
Well, I think they definitely were, and this is a point that I think people have brought up in the listening sessions, which is we know that the reason that Rosanne Williams is here and the executives are here and that they're even paying attention to Buffalo, New York, is because of the union and is a direct response to the union. They've done things like sent the facilities managers into multiple stores, fixing long overdue problems that have been a problem for months, if not years, that they're just now coming in to fix. And that's a point that we've made now time again, which is that we're not organizing to address specific issues necessarily, even though there are real issues. It's more to have a voice in our workplace, because we know that this is a direct response to the union and that there's no guarantee that they are going to listen to us when this is over. They like to say that listening is a part of their culture, but we know for a fact that partners who have been here for 15 plus years have never heard of a similar listening session in the past. So we know that the only way to guarantee our voice and an actual seat at the table is by organizing.
And could you talk about, not all exploitation is the same. I mean, Amazon, for example, you have workers peeing in bottles, being carted off on stretchers because of the heat in the warehouse. A Starbucks worker I spoke with 2 weeks ago was talking about, even during pandemic, you have to pump out like 10 frappuccinos in 5 minutes and these kind of things. When people think of Starbucks, I don't know, they just think like, oh, Starbucks, I just go and get my overpriced drink. What are some of the issues? They might not be tyranny, but what are some of the issues that are straining workers who are not getting paid? They're not becoming rich working at Starbucks.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple things. For one, we have two main like directives basically that are how we're measured in terms of like productivity. One is like our drive-through times, and the other is our customer connection scores, which are two things that completely contradict each other. In order to have a good drive-through time, you need to be getting somebody, that's at the window out within 40 seconds. But in order to have a good customer connection score, you need to be able to have a meaningful connection with the customer, make them feel like they had the proper Starbucks experience, and that they found like their third place moment at Starbucks and that the moment was right for them. Basically, stores that do well on one don't do well on the other, and there's just a constant like pressure facing down where you are always being asked to overproduce and also not be like under conditions where it's understaffed. And then also there's just so much, I think, like fatigue, like both physically and emotionally, like from being expected to like get through all of these things constantly throughout the day. It's like we'll go like 4 hours, 5 hours of just making drink after drink after drink and not even being able to stop, to take a breath.
Yeah, that's so true. And the other thing that I would add is a point to the counter argument that, I mean, we want to acknowledge that, yes, Starbucks does have some amazing benefits, and, we're not anti-Starbucks at all. Like we are Starbucks, and some of the things that I know I really appreciate are like the health benefits, like the stock options and stuff like that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that it couldn't be any better. And at the same time, Starbucks is the leading coffee house in the entire world. It's $1 billion company. And the fact that partners are still barely making barely making a living wage is really, it's sad. And Starbucks can do better. And Starbucks has a metaphorical seat at the table for partners, but there's no partner there, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be there. We're the ones who are on the floor day after day. We're the ones that are the public facing part of this company, and we really do deserve a seat at the table, and we deserve to have our voices listened to in the long term.
And going off of that too, there's a reason that this is happening in Buffalo, I think, which is that we already saw another coffee chain in Buffalo organize, and they were able to see when they negotiated a contract on average a $4 increase across the board. Like that's the kind of thing that if it were to happen at Starbucks, we could really make this a place that offered a living wage that was very sustainable in its model, and really like change outcomes, I think, not just at our company, but across the service industry, which is by and large facing these very big problems in terms of staffing and, just being overworked and being overexploited. So.
And I think something Casey mentioned is important, because at the end of the day, America has been a race to the bottom for the last 40 years. And we have basically been programmed to say, hey, shut the fuck up. You have benefits. Stock options? What are you complaining about?
Yeah.
When the reality is, most of these things are kind of just baked into society in other countries. I mean, you go to Europe, I mean, beyond the benefits you have at Starbucks that many in America would say, or what are you complaining about? So like just having benefits or stock options, that should be kind of the expectation, not the ceiling, for companies, particularly like you said, we're talking $1 billion companies here, international companies. So, and what you're describing, what they're saying, they're all reading from the same book. This is what Amazon's executives say to workers trying to organize, Walmart, fast food. I mean, you name it. It's not unique to Starbucks. They are trying to manipulate workers with intimidation tactics to make you think, oh no, we're a family. Well, if there was a family feeling, I don't think you'd be trying to form a union.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the day, like Starbucks is a business. They're working to make a profit, and they say that they're pro partner, but I think this is just their response to this campaign has proven that they're really anti partner. And I think the other thing was it was confirmed that Rosanne at one of the meetings said something along the lines of there's no place for unions at Starbucks. But like we said before, like we are the union. So if there's no place for a union, then there's no place for partners in general. And that's just unacceptable because without partners, Starbucks wouldn't exist.
Right. I could kind of talk about, I'm not trying to get your political views, but there is some political things going on in Buffalo. I mean, you got India Walton is a socialist. She won the Democratic primary there. And I guess something smells in Buffalo. The Democratic mayor who lost, who's frankly corrupt from what I've seen, somehow managed to get on the ballot under a brand new party. But there seems to be this feeling, not just among Starbucks workers, but I think some energy in Buffalo for things to radically change.
Yeah, I would say that there's people on the organizing committee from all different political orientations. And, I'm sure there's supporters of all different political candidates. I will say, like, India Walton has been an amazing supporter of our campaign so far. But I think it's just not only the political scene, but wider community support. I know people have asked about like the buttons that we wear on our aprons that say SB Workers United on them and are generally supportive. I was walking down the street in my own neighborhood the other day and heard people talking about one of the articles that came out and was saying, "Oh, did you hear about this happening?" So I think you're right in the sense that this is a great place to be doing this right now because we do have the community support. And we know that people in this town will back us up, especially when it comes to Starbucks' blatant anti-union tactics.
Right, like Buffalo, it's in New York, but it's really part of the Rust Belt, and so here we're looking at a city that for decades was unionized under like factories and under industry that simply has outsourced, but there's still a very strong union presence here, and I think if back in the 50s and 60s we didn't blink twice if somebody graduated high school and then was able to get a job that started paying $30-40 an hour and they were able to raise a family off of it. Why are we all of a sudden going to treat service industry workers differently, especially now that the service industry is making up 70% of this economy and it's something that you can't outsource?
Right. And finally, where did things stand? I mean, I know you kind of started this organizing a few weeks ago. You mentioned gathering signatures. What is kind of the update as far as how many workers seem to be interested and what are the next steps?
Well, so we originally signed a letter to Kevin Johnson that had about 50 signatures on it. Our organizing committee now across the city is about 100. And beyond that, we filed elections at 3 different stores, and we have 3 more that are also, 2 more that are also filing as well.
Wow, awesome.
I would say, I would just give the workers credit. Like, everybody sees through what Starbucks is doing. Like, their tactics aren't smart. They're not creative. They're very obvious. They're union busting 101. And people see that, there's been problems like this for the past, for years now, and that there was no response. And they see the clear link between Starbucks coming in now, especially with executives and what they're trying to do. So I would say that people see what's going on, and I think I give it's scary to do this. There's real fear here. Starbucks has a horrible anti-union history, and so people are scared. And I would just say that I give my coworkers a lot of credit for having the courage to even do this in the first place.
Absolutely. So when you go, folks, when you go to get your pumpkin spice latte, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on in Buffalo, because everybody likes, basic coffee with a few sprinkles in there. I love some of the drinks they come up with that are basically like basic drinks, but adding a few swirls. But anyway, not to minimize, because you make great drinks, but you got to remember the workers are behind this. They're not getting rich, but the CEO and the executives are getting rich. And this is blatant union busting 101. So definitely stay in touch with you as you guys develop this campaign. I might actually be in Buffalo anyway to cover the mayor's race coming up. So I might try to come talk to some more of you because I think it's great. You know, frankly, the progressive movement has kind of been down in the dumps over the last year, but there's something to be hopeful about right now because it's Starbucks workers, there's strikes popping up all over the place. I mean, honestly, labor was dead for 20 years. So credit to you guys for, fighting back.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully we're going to see some Starbucks in more cities showing up with us as well.
Yeah, and let us know when you're in Buffalo. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll be around.
All right. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.